All right, strap in, because today we're diving deep into Breakblade.
Yeah, it's got giant robots and there's a cool BUT. There's so much more to this anime than just awesome fights. Think quartz-powered tech instead of smartphones, golems instead of cars, and a world that's, well, kind of messed up.
What really grabs you is the setting. This continent, Cruzon. They're totally reliant on quartz crystals. And I don't mean for pretty jewelry. This stuff powers everything.
It's like what oil is to us today, but times 1,000.
Exactly. And just like our dependence on oil leads to conflict, so does quartz for them.
Okay, so we got this quartz-powered society, right? Enter Rygart, our main guy. He's what they call an un-sorcerer.
Which basically means he's powerless in a world where everyone else has these, like, quartz-given superpowers.
Imagine everyone around you can, I don't know, shoot lightning from their fingertips, and
Right.
you're just normal. Talk about feeling left out.
It's an instant hook, that underdog story. You root for Rygart from the get-go.
And then, boom, he finds this ancient golem, a war machine, that only he can pilot.
Which wouldn't be such a big deal, except his best friend, Hodder, is the King of Krisna. A kingdom teetering on the edge of war with, you guessed it, the Athens Commonwealth.
Stakes just went through the roof, right? Rygart, this ordinary guy, might be the key to winning a war.
But Breakblade isn't some simple hero saves the day story. It digs deep into the hard choices both Rygart and Hodder have to make.
Oh yeah, that's what gets me, the leadership aspect.
Hodder's this really thoughtful king. He does not want this war, but he's got to protect his people. What do you do in that situation?
It's a classic dilemma. Sacrifice your people or unleash the horrors of war.
And then there's Hodder's wife, Queen Saigon. She's the brains of the operation, brilliant scientist.
But her inventions, they're being used to build weapons.
You gotta wonder about the ethics of that, right? Does making something powerful make you responsible for how it's used?
Especially when it's something that can cause harm, even if that wasn't your intention.
It's like those debates we have today about AI taken to a whole other level.
Breakblade doesn't shy away from those tough questions. And just to pile on,
There's Zess, another childhood friend of Rygart and Hodder. Guess who he's fighting for? The enemy.
yep, talk about a tangled web. And the enemy doesn't tell you who's right or wrong. It's messy, realistic.
You start to see both sides. Even the Athens Commonwealth have their reasons for fighting.
Just like in the real world, right?
Yeah.
It's never black and white. Think about, well, any conflict, really.
So we've got this world on the edge, powered by something our main guy can't even use. He stumbles upon a super weapon. His friends are on opposite sides. Talk about a recipe for disaster. But before we get to the fighting, we got to talk about these golems.
Right, because they're more than just giant robots stomping around. They're like the embodiment of Cruzon's tech.
All their eggs are in this one basket, so to speak.
And that ancient golem Rygart finds, it's a total game changer. Could upset the whole balance of power like what nukes did for us.
Imagine someone digging up a weapon that powerful today. Would it mean peace through fear or just make things worse?
Breakblade explores that tension perfectly. It'll keep you thinking long after the episode's over.
So, complex characters, world about to explode, mystery weapon. Before we go any further, though, what's grabbing you so far? What's got you hooked? Okay, so we've got this world built on quartz, giant golems, everyone's on edge. But what really gets me is how Breakblade shows, like the human cost of war.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just big strategy moves and cool fight scenes. It's about the people caught in the middle of this mess, you know? Makes you think about what war really means.
Yeah, and Rygart's a perfect example. He's not a soldier, just a regular guy. Suddenly he has to fight, to kill. You feel that weight through his eyes.
Kind of like, well, Vietnam, right? Young guys drafted, sent to fight in a war they don't understand, and having to deal with that, well, that trauma afterward.
It's tough to watch, but it also shows how resilient people can be. Rygart, he's scared at first, obviously, but he learns to pilot that golem, makes hard choices, keeps going when anyone else would just give up.
Humans are amazing like that. You see it throughout history. Imagine, I don't know, a Roman soldier far from home, facing some terrifying enemy. Must have been terrifying, but they found the courage to fight.
It's that, like, universal thing, overcoming fear to survive.
And it's not just physical, right? Hodder, Sigyn, they're dealing with mental and emotional pressure, too.
Hodder especially wants peace, but gotta protect his kingdom. The weight of knowing your choices could get people killed?
That crushed most people, but he somehow keeps going, making the best decisions he can, even when there are no good options.
And Sigyn, her inventions are being used for war. Must be tough knowing that. Like, how many scientists throughout history?
Right. Think of the people who built the atomic bomb. They're trying to help their country, but
Yeah.
the consequences, sometimes even good intentions can go wrong in a big way. Breakblade really gets that.
Yeah, it shows the costs on the battlefield and people's lives everywhere. But there's also this hope, this strength that shines through. I think anyone who's faced hardship can relate to that.
Absolutely. But we got to talk about the golems themselves too, right? They're not just cool robots. They're symbols of power, technology, and how that tech can be used for good or bad. That ancient golem Rygart finds, it changes everything.
Like when, what was it, the English longbow showed up, suddenly knights and armor were useless. One invention changing war forever. This ancient golem has that same power, so. Is technology always a good thing?
Tough question. We see it now, right? New tech comes out. It's supposed to be progress, but then nukes, drones, AI, it can all go either way.
Breakblade really makes you think about that. Like, what's our role in all this? Where do we draw the line?
And it's not just the tech, it's the people using it, right? Rygart can pilot this ancient thing even without quartz powers. It shows it's not just about the machine, it's skill, willpower, something more.
Like, human ingenuity can still beat out fancy tech.
Yeah.
I like that message.
Me too. But before we wrap up, got to mention the ending, right?
Oh, yeah, that ending. Fans are still debating it, I think. So many unanswered questions.
Some people hate that, but it's also what makes it stick with you.
Totally. It's not all tied up in a bow. It's like, what, Inception? Was it a dream or not? Breakblade's ending is like that. Makes you think harder, come up with your own answers.
And that's what makes the story great, right? It sticks with you, makes you think even after it's over. Breakblade is deeper than it looks.
So we've talked world building, characters, the heavy stuff. But Breakblade is also just, well, gorgeous to look at.
Yeah, it's stunning. The animation, it's like a mix of old school and modern. Gives the golems this weight. They feel real.
Oh, yeah, the fight scenes, metal on metal, the ground shaking, you're right there with them. But it's not just mindless action. There's strategy, skill. It's like...
Almost like a fencing match, yeah. Every move thought out. Gotta have perfect timing. These pilots, they're more like athletes.
And the music, dude. The soundtrack is epic. Big orchestral stuff that gets your heart pumping, but then it's got these quieter moments that, well, they get you right in the feels.
It's the kind of soundtrack you listen to even when you're not watching, and it takes you right back to that world.
We've talked about a lot of what makes Breakblade special, but how do you think it fits in with other mecha anime? What makes it stand out?
It's almost like an outlier, I'd say. It's got the giant robots, the fights, but it's also deeper. It's about the characters, about war, morality, all that heavy stuff.
Doesn't shy away from the tough questions, makes you think.
Exactly. It's not your typical good guys versus bad guys. It's way more nuanced than that.
And that's what I like about it. It's a mecha anime that anyone can get into, even if you don't usually watch that kind of stuff. It just sticks with you. So for someone listening who's like, okay, this sounds cool, what's the one thing they should take away from all this? What's Breakblade really about?
Man, that's a tough one. There's so much going on in this anime. But I guess if I had to pick one thing, it's that even when things are awful, there's still hope. There's always a chance to grow, to change, to be resilient, even when the world's trying to break you.
I like that. Even when it seems impossible, you can keep going, fight for what you believe in.
And sometimes the people you least expect, the outcasts, the underdogs, they're the ones who make the biggest difference.
It's like Breakblade saying, hey, being different is a good thing.
All right, folks, that's our deep dive into Breakblade. Giant robots, sure, but so much more than that. It'll make you think, feel, and maybe even give you some hope. If you're looking for an anime that'll stay with you, check it out.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Might even change how you see the world. Who knows?
That's all for today's deep dive. See you